Larry, hello. Thank you so much for being part of the New Scientist Book Club. It is a huge, huge honor to have you here as an undisputed master of science fiction and an incredibly important person in the evolution of the genre. What got you started as a science fiction writer? And presuming you were a big sci-fi fan before you wrote any, who were your favorite sci-fi authors growing up?
I read science fiction almost exclusively in my early 20s and in my 10s, but I didn't know about science fiction fandom until I had started writing for sale. Uh, that was a great boon to me. I finally had some contact with the people I wanted to reach.
At what point in your career did you become a full-time science writer? Was there a time when you juggled it with other work?
I started as a science aficionado, particularly astrophysics and and astronomy. When I ran out of options, that's when I started writing. About age 24, when I realized I was just spinning my wheels at UCL as a graduate student in math.
How did you come up with the idea of Ringworld, and how long did it take you to write it?
I was told about Dyson spheres by one of the other writers. I think it was Poole Anderson. Dyson told us how we could see other civilizations if they were powerful enough. A tool using civilization should end up using all of the power from its sun. Uh, for that, it has to block all of the sunlight and radiate it at waste levels. A science fiction writer looks at the Dyson sphere and pictures a ping pong ball 93 million miles in radius terraform the inside. Actually, Jack Williamson and Frederick Pohl did a trilogy in which they terraformed both the inside and the outside, but that was later. Uh, I look at the Dyson sphere, I see that unless you can generate gravity, uh, you'll have to depend on spin gravity, and you wind up using just the equator. Everything winds up at the equator, leaving a vacuum above. Uh, with that idea in mind, I took just the equator, the poor man's Dyson sphere, and elaborated on that. Some of the implications just seem to write themselves.
Personally, the ring world inspires a sense of awe and wonder. And one of our book club members, Terry James, mentioned that you do an amazing job with scale. Why do you think that the book was such a massive success and continues to be so iconic?
At least two of the reasons are two people got involved in publicizing it.
Ah.
Terry James has a point. My decision to go with a large scale structure, despite the possibility of getting laughed off the stage, uh, was a key to my success.
I've read, and also you mentioned in that piece you wrote for New Scientist about how science students and academics really got involved in the physics of Ringworld after it was published, and they were doing papers on it. Um, what was that like for you? And do you think that sort of intense global interactive reaction would happen today?
Science fiction has pretty much won its point uh, with all the movies and comic books and stuff. So Ringworld would be a bigger success today, but it wouldn't grab the mathematicians as easily as it did. Ringworld is a grand intellectual toy, as I found it, and as a lot of readers did. You can play with it, elaborate it, work out uh, Niven's mistakes.
You just said that science fiction won its point. What was its point?
Look to the future.
Right.
Things are changing, and also the point only science fiction seems to make is that there are minds out there that think as well as you do, but differently.
Why did you leave it so long before you wrote Ringworld Engineers? It's been said that you wrote Ringworld Engineers to set the record straight in a way after people, talked about the science. Is that what happened? What did happen?
Pretty much every answer you got is true.
Okay.
I I was trying to get the corrections in uh, for one thing, and I was trying to make a better book than Ringworld for another. Ringworld doesn't have enough of the occupants of the structure. I wanted to elaborate that. Robert Heinlein told me that Ringworld and the Ringworld Engineers uh, made a great novel, as if they belonged together. He's right.
Is there anything you would do differently if you wrote Ringworld today?
I've been telling people that I would start over with a universe in which you can't go faster than light. Nobody's got psychic powers. And if I made those changes, I'd get a wholly different novel. I've been telling people that, but I really don't see how I would write it. The point is, if you build a ring world, it has to be because you can't reach other stars.
My personal favorite of your books, and in fact, my favorite sci-fi of by anyone is A World Out of Time. I love everything about it. What can you tell me about writing that book, and do you view it as fondly as I do?
First, I wrote a dystopia story uh, in which uh, the people who are getting frozen in order to reach the future get their wish a little bent, revived, but no civil rights. You don't have to consider a revived dead man as a citizen, and you don't have to give it to keep money for him. And I showed it in a short story and was very happy with it. And it's the first chapter of A World Out of Time, is it? One day I just continued the story and reached as far into the future as I felt comfortable and a little further.
You've been a great collaborator on books. I think you wrote 9 with Jerry Pournelle, and I think A Mote in God's Eye was actually you moved into his universe. Um, yeah, I'm really interested in how that worked.
I think a little more than 9. When Jerry suggested doing a collaboration, I said yes. I didn't know what it would be like, but I was sure it would be fun. It was fun, but it was also a lot of work and took longer than I expected. We belong to the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Society, and they watched us talk about A Mote in God's Eye as it progressed over 3 years. And they they gave us an award they made up, best unfinished novel, and they did it twice.
When I asked you before this on email which of your books I should read before this interview, you said Draco's Tavern, and I bought the book and I started it with a bit of a heavy heart because I'm not a short story person. When I got into the book, I was blown away by it. For anyone who hasn't read it, it's sort of set in a bar on Earth. You know the barman, aliens come in, and I think why it was so successful for me is because you've got the character of the barman going through, and you learn about the aliens. So I felt it was more of a novel, really, with an unusual structure rather than an ordinary short story book. But you put so many ideas into that book. you could have done so many novels out of it. What was the process, but what was your thinking behind it? How did it come to be?
I started writing short stories. Uh, Rapidly realized that if you wrote a really short story, it still had to be sto- story shaped. Eventually, I decided I wanted to write stories that showed wisdom and also were story shaped and localized and very short. Yes, the Draco Tavern series became novel shaped. Uh, I think that happened as my skill developed over several decades.
If you were going to send a reader to 4 of your books other than Draco's Tavern, which 4 would you choose?
When people ask me my favorite book,
Mm.
I usually base my answer on who they are. Lucifer's Hammer for normal people,
Mm.
uh, Footfall for military people, The Ringworld for actual fans. Let's see, Destiny's Road, I think, again for normal people.
What are you working on now?
I'm working with Stephen Barnes on a novel set in the universe of Gildy Arm Hamilton. The early Arm detective science fiction stories set what used to be 140 years in the future and is now about 100.
I've got some quick questions now. What is your favorite science fiction book not written by you?
Just off the top of my head, I love Nova by Samuel R. Delaney.
What is your favorite book in any genre not written by you?
I'm afraid it has to be The Wizard of Oz, although that's reaching way back into the past.
Great choice. What is your favorite science fiction TV show?
Star Trek, although I've lapsed.
What is your favorite sci-fi movie?
Reaching way back, it's Destination Moon.
Oh.
I like the movies that don't wind up going transcendental into endings you can't follow. But those are the ambitious ones. The ambitious ones are like 2001 A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
And they always go transcendental because you can always see where you ought to be from where you are in the space program.
Yeah.
But Rollerball
Oh.
was ambitious, minor ambition, and did it perfectly. And Westworld did the same. That's all I can call to mind immediately, but they were great.
What is the one piece of advice you would offer someone trying to write science fiction today?
I I do make speeches to the students at the Writers of the Future award ceremonies, and I was introducing a guy. He had a long name, so in the middle of introducing him, I said, "Your autograph sessions are going to be a nightmare. Shorten your name, like I did."
Great advice. Would you like to meet an alien, presuming you haven't already?
I think I'd be ready to meet a Pearson's puppeteer or a Modi mediator.
Do you think that humans are eventually going to make it out of this solar system?
We are making progress. We're not making it as fast as any of us expected. We thought the moon was in easy reach. It's in difficult reach.
Larry, thank you so much for talking to us. It's been an absolute privilege.
You're welcome, and it's a pleasure to be lecturing new scientists. Have fun reading.